Yes, welcome into Running It Straight for your Wednesday, the 24th of July. Round 20 in the books, round 21 upon us. We have just 6 games left in the Warriors' regular season before finals football is upon us. Do you still have them making the top 8? That's something we will discuss over the next hour as we talk rugby league. Myself, Sammy Hewat, alongside Anthony Galling. We will talk the Warriors game from the weekend. We'll talk about the Tigers this coming weekend. Pat Richards, the former Tigers legend, of course, scored one of the most iconic grand final tries from that pass from Benji Marshall. He's going to join us in around about 20 minutes' time to chat about the game this weekend and where the Tigers are at as a club. We will have a look at some of the other games on over round 21. We'll round out the hour with some more additions to our Simpsons 13. A big shout out to Staffy, who sat in for me last Wednesday. I was inundated on the in the bed with the cough syrup and the tissues. So, but I'm back, Jello.
Good to have you back, brother. Good to have you back.
I'm back off the
I think I picked up
change.
your bug as well.
Did you?
I had a pretty rough week.
I heard, and you might hear a bit of sniffling as well. I did hear that a little bit of criticism coming my way. You were about to give me my first grade debut last week. The coach was about to pull me aside, give me the massive raps, and then I went and pulled a sickie. So the timing couldn't be worse. But no, it's good to be back, Jello, and good to be talking some rugby league. It's been, I've always said this, and this year in particular, for some reason, it's really hit home for me that the Origin period it's a weird sort of period to navigate. Like, you have less games, you have stars not playing, and I feel like this is the first week where we're back. Every team's playing. There's just the one bye for Newcastle. But everyone else is playing, so you've got a full slate of games. All the stars are back. All these injured players are starting to return. Nathan Cleary, Jamal Fogarty, Cam Munster, I think, is back on the extended bench for the Storm this week. It's starting to feel like you're really ramping up to final. So it feels like we're back on track after a bit of a lull.
Yeah, defo, man. You think some of those return from injuries are almost tactical. Like, you think if a guy's out for 10 weeks, 11 weeks, whatever, do you bring him back in round 18 or do you bring him back in round 21, 22 just to shorten that run to the finals?
Well, I think
especially if you're safe in the top 8
Well, that's
already.
the thing. If you're safe, there's a few teams there that really seasons are on the line. The Warriors are obviously one of them, but there's a lot of teams in and around that top 8 who can't afford to drop games. I think the Broncos are one of them. They're a team that can't afford to be cute. They've basically got to play everyone, guys backing up after Origin, etc., because they're desperate to get back up there. Whereas, the Storm, for me, Jello, have been one of the surprises of 2024. Like, you always have them in your top 8. Generally, I think you had them missing out, didn't you? Or was that Aish? I think one of you.
I had them in the top 8. I think I had them out of the top 4.
I think Aish might have had them outside of the top 8.
Really?
Yeah. I think you always have them as a challenger, but you never expect. Well, not never, but I didn't expect them to be, a premiership favourite and a top contender as they are at the moment. Right? They've got 4 points on Penrith. With what do we got? Round 21, so we've got 7 games to play for those two teams. So, another couple of wins for the Storm, and they'll almost wrap up that minor premiership. That's pretty remarkable.
I think what the Storm are so good at, and what Craig Bellamy's good at, is all these little games in between. Playing the Seagulls, playing the Doggies, playing the Dolphins. Yeah. Those teams will beat a lot of guys. Even if you're beating top 4 teams, you can drop those games. Bellamy's very good at putting an emphasis and putting an importance into those games. Those little games that no one's really watching, Canberra away and stuff like that, where you could go there and get beaten quite easily. He's good at getting the boys up to win those ones.
What did you think of the Roosters? Me and you have spoken about it over the last couple of weeks of them being a premiership threat. I think you've got them sitting in a grand final, but obviously they lose to the Storm. You always gauge them against top 4 teams to see where they're at. Like, what does that say for Roosters fans?
Well, that loss, I watched that game. That loss, the Roosters didn't play too bad. Like, they weren't far off. There was a couple decisions. Or a couple tries that the Storm picked up. Roosters kind of came back late, scored a couple good tries themselves. There's not much in that game. That could be the grand final this year.
Yep.
There's a lot of teams that are kind of rearing up now. Panthers look so good.
Well, they did, but at the same time, they were chasing the game. The Dolphins had them on the ropes for most of that, and I.
Yeah, but I'm saying the Panthers without their Origin stars. Like,
right,
you'd expect them to lose that game.
No, for sure, and I think. The Dolphins have surprised me as well. I didn't think they'd be as competitive against Penrith, but they did. They did the job. They got close to doing the job, and it took some Nathan Cleary brilliance to get them home. The Sharks are still inside that top 4. I just feel like no Nico Hines and pushing towards the back end. I think they might find themselves slipping out. But I do think Jello, we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, sort of the power rankings and how the top 8 might look, and I feel like it's starting to
match up.
To match up, right?
Yeah.
Like we talked about, I think at the time the Seagulls were out of the 8. I think the Cowboys were out of the top 8. And we thought the Dolphins might take a bit of a slide, which they have. They've moved from that top 4 down to the 7th position. And now you're looking outside of it, and the only team that I see outside that may push their way in are the Bronx.
Yeah.
I know the Rabbits, we talk about them as well, but I just don't know if, when you look at who's in the 8 now, who they kick out. I feel like, Dolphins, Cowboys, Broncos and Rabbits are the 4 teams that are going to be battling for 7, 8, 9, 10. Even though the Dragons and Raiders are just in behind them at the moment.
So have you just written the Wires off completely?
Well, let's get to that. Let's talk about the game against Canberra over the weekend. And as is always the case, we're wrapping it a couple of days late. But we've had a chance to, I guess, sit back and digest it all a little bit more. 20 points to 18, they go down. The big talking point, Chanel Harris-Tavita missing 3 of his conversions, including the one that would have tied the match, which we'll get into very, very shortly. But in terms of where that puts them for the season, Jello, we said 1 loss in this last stretch after the bye. That's the 1 loss.
Yeah.
So do you think they can go on and win 6 in a row to make the top 8?
I honestly don't know. I'd like to say that they can, and it would be a hell of a story. But I don't know. They'd have to really, really have something special going. They'd have to have all the boys playing. The ones that aren't are going to have to come back and play really well. But they gotta fix their defense. You can't concede 2 tries in the first 10 minutes. And be 12-0 down, chasing the game. Because even when they come back and score 4 tries in that game, but it's still not enough. Defensively, it's not enough.
And they were pretty weak tries too, the ones in the first 10.
Yeah, too soft. Way too soft.
To your point, I don't think it's definitely doable, right? Like there's 6 games that are winnable games for sure. We're not playing Melbourne, we're not playing Penrith. We're playing some good teams in the top 8, but it's definitely doable. But like you, it's sort of like which team's going to show up, what team's actually going to perform on the day. And if they do get Sean and some of these other guys back, then who knows? But it's hard, Jello, now. That these are the games all season that the Warriors should have won on paper, but also should have won during the match in the fact of, they lose by a couple of points. They'll look at missed opportunities. They'll look at, missed goals or missed penalties or whatever. And, I can legitimately think of probably 5 games this year, that Bulldogs game being one of them a couple of weeks ago.
Bulldogs, Anzac Day with the Titans.
Anzac Day with the Titans.
Manly game, they had a chance to win. The Manly game,
they had a chance to win it. The Storm with Xavier Coates.
Yep.
This Raiders game. So there's 5 that we've just rattled off. Newcastle away. I can't quite remember. Was that the low-scoring one?
Yeah, really low scoring. 14-10. I think we're waiting for them to score.
But see, those 5 we just mentioned, Jello, are legitimately like they almost were last play.
4.
But they were almost last play losses, right? So, I mean, the Newcastle one, it's like, yep, you should have won that game, you should have played better, but even then it didn't sort of come down to a last-minute play, whereas pretty much all of those 5 came down to some sort of last-minute play. So to your point, yes, you win those games, and you're inside the top 4. You're challenging. So, and I've always said this year, I haven't been as despondent as people when the Warriors have lost, because I've felt like they haven't played, they've been patches where they've played poorly, but they haven't been getting blown out by teams. Titans game aside, it's felt like they are close. They just haven't been able to get over the line. So, but I mean, in terms of take all that away, if I had a gun to your head, the Warriors going to make the top 8 after the loss to Canberra.
I'd love to say yes.
I
know they can. There's a possibility they can do it. I want to see them do it. I know they can do it, but I don't know.
So I'm pulling the trigger then. I'll go on the lip, Jello, and I don't think they will. And like last year, I'm going to get absolutely scolded by Warriors fans, and I'll be called a traitor, and I've got no faith. I tend to try and just look at things a little bit more realistic. It doesn't mean I'm not going to support them or anything. I just don't think it's going to happen now. I think the season has been gone. So you also have to look at, I guess, the mathematics of it. So we were just talking about Dolphins, Cowboys, Broncos, Rabbitohs fighting it out. So it's not just that the Warriors need to win their 6 games to get in there. It's like all those teams are also trying to do the same thing.
They've got to lose the right games.
They've got to lose the right games, and they've got. And I just think that the Broncos and Rabbitohs with the talent they've got, particularly like the Rabbitohs on the momentum charge that they have, and when they get Latrell back, I think it's next week or the week after. I think that they might just be too hard to topple. Let alone the Cowboys and the Dolphins, who are 5 points ahead of us. Which on paper is 3 wins that we get that they don't get. So they need to go 50%.
And there's that factor too. Even if we were to make the 8, like we'd be scraping and be absolutely fighting and battling to get in. While you got teams in the top 4 resting players.
Yep.
We got finals next week. We got a bye coming up. Let's use that. Let's rest guys, and they'll be ready for finals. Whereas we're just fighting to get there.
Yeah. So I'm in that sort of belief that I don't think top 8 is on the cards for the Warriors this year. But I'm still bullish.
Keep the faith.
I'm still bullish in 2025. For James Fisher-Harris coming in as a good replacement for Annan Fanua-Blake and a lot of the rest of that squad returning. The guy that, and by the way, what a chat Luke Metcalf was last week. Great to have him in studio. Awesome dude. He is a guy that hasn't been talked about enough in 2024, like his injury, and what he brought to the team as a number 6. Ball runner, dangerous, another option on attack, and how exciting he was in those first few weeks before he got injured. Like, having him back in 2025 is going to be huge for Tamati or Sean, whoever it is.
100%. Anybody that possesses that kind of speed. So he's got, you might say he's got a try in him every game or thereabouts. Every time there's a loose ball, there's a chance that he could finish it off.
Yep.
Every time there's an
always
intercept or a line break going the other way, there's a good chance he's running them down. Like, we don't have that out-and-out speed stuff.
Correct. And he was always running that inside line. If Wade Egan broke through or whoever, or Chance or whoever it was, he was always that support runner.
And that's what's been missing.
I agree. Yeah. So, I think he is heavily, his absence has been heavily underrated because I think it's going to be a massive boost in 2025. I think there's maybe something that needs to be looked at here with the Warriors. Like, the last 2 seasons have been injury-ridden, right? And every team gets injuries. It's been a bad year overall for the this year. But I don't know. I just feel like the Warriors, more so than anyone else, and I don't know who the strength and conditioning, what sort of meal plan they've got them on over there at Warriors HQ, Jello. Just not enough salt. Too much cramp.
Not enough pickle juice.
Not enough pickle juice.
Well, this is what I didn't want. I didn't want it to be in round 21. We're talking about what could have been. What could have been. If only. Yeah. But there's still a chance. So
you're telling me there's a chance?
You're telling me there's a chance. We're still on. So until they lose again, let's.
I know, but
let's keep the faith.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you being positive, But
well, you have to be, because there's a time when it's gone, and it's not gone yet.
Yeah, but to your point, even if they do make the 8, it's not like, no team's ever won outside the top 4. So, I just feel like, it's, and we won't have home advantage at all. Like, if we finish 8th, you don't get the home final at any stage. So, it's sort of like we don't have that Mount Smart advantage. But
I'm sure you'll still find your way there wherever they're playing.
Just quickly, to round out that game that lost to Canberra. So, obviously a big talking point was Chanel and the missed kicks. Now, I know Chanel quite well. Have you spoken to him? What's his feeling like after the game, and I guess how you viewed the whole situation, and what I have felt like has been very, very unfair backlash following the loss as well?
Yeah, Chanel, he's an absolute champion. Like, I'm quite close with him. I played footy with his dad, actually. It's quite funny, yeah. So on his back end of his dad playing at Hewat, we won the Fox Memorial.
Nice.
So I played with him and then played with Chanel at the Warriors. So that was quite cool to kind of bridge that gap between father and son. But Chanel's an absolute legend. So I do some work at the schools, mentoring some of the young kids, year 9 and 10 boys. Chanel comes along with me and he does that as well. So that's his old school that he goes back to and just kind of just shares some knowledge and wisdom with the young guys. He's really good at it, really good temperament for that kind of stuff. He's an absolute legend. So after the game, I text him, I said, bro, just sending you some positive vibes because I know there's going to be some negative ones this week, and keep your head up. Love you, mate. That was it. I wanted to get him on the show this week, but I know he's going to want to prep for this week. So I'll leave him to it. I know he's got enough on his plate.
What kind of, just enlighten us though, Jello, what kind of individual Chanel is, off the field but also on the field in terms of how he'll respond to the weekend?
What do you mean, footy wise?
Both. I guess from just a mental point of view of maybe feeling like he let the team down, but also footy-wise getting back out there, confidence-wise. Just give us a little sense of, Chanel, what he's like in those sorts of situations.
He's got a very old head on young shoulders. Like, he's quite a wise young man, so I don't think he'll let it faze him too much. Like, you could see in the dressing room, obviously he cares. Like, 100% he cares. It's not like he doesn't care, whatever, move on. Like, he cares about it, but he's mature enough to get through it, I think. Yeah.
Well, the big question now is who kicks goals this weekend, because the team list that came out yesterday doesn't have Adam Pompey, doesn't have Tane Tuopiki. So we've got a question mark as to who's going to kick goals.
Well, who could have kicked goals that night in Canberra? Because I guarantee Chanel wouldn't have put his hand up. They would have said, here's the tee, go on, you kick it.
Yep.
I don't think he
Surely
wanted...
Tamati can kick goals as well.
I think Tamati can kick, but you know who can kick, and he's a very good kicker, is Mitch Barnett.
Yeah, that was brought up by...
but is it too much to ask
Sam
him
Ackerman
to be like, Mitch, you've just won Origin.
Yeah.
You're backing up, and you're the captain, and you just scored the try to level it. Can you kick the goal as well?
And also, he did that kick on the last tackle. So if you want to go to the halves, Mitch, do you want to go
can
on
you
the
just
halves?
do everything?
Yeah.
Can you pack up the pads when we're finished? Can you load the bus up as well? Can you sweep the sheds when we're done?
He probably could. Okay, so there's a couple of options here. It'd be very interesting to see whether Chanel sort of does put his hand up, or Andrew Webster does say, you know what, Chanel, you're the guy. Forget last week. We want you to go out there. We want you to put that hat back on, that kicking hat back on, and go for it, or whether they work on something this week to put someone else in there. Either way, that'll be what people are looking for on Friday night. Who's going to kick the goals? Because, like I said, no Adam Pompey, no Tane Tuopiki. And this is the bit I was mentioning just before about the criticism being quite harsh on Chanel Harris-Tavita. And people look at that last kick, which was, don't get me wrong, should have been kicked over. It was an easy kick. It should have been put through. Whether or not it's on Chanel or his captain, someone I think at that stage should have stepped up and said, mate, we're going to give Tamati, we're going to get Tamati to kick this one, or someone, right? Because it's an easy kick, so it's an easy for one for Tamati or whoever it might be. Yeah. This guy's had he's missed a couple of good, pretty difficult kicks. So I don't put all the blame, but also, Chanel went into that game having absolutely no plan to kick goals.
No, he wouldn't have been prepared for it. And I think if that last try was on the sideline, that conversation would have happened. You've already missed two from the sideline. Let's let someone else kick. Because it was close to the post, they probably thought, oh no, you'll get this one.
Yeah.
And he probably thought, I'll get this one. But in the back of his head, he's thinking...
Well, he definitely was timid. You can tell he stepped into it a little bit timid. But it's done, it's dusted. And one thing I will say just around this out, Jello, is all the people that say, it cost us the game. I hate when people talk about one moment costing a game, whether it's a referee or a player decision. The team had 80 minutes to put Canberra away. Even if he had hit the goal, it's 20-all, right? And we have to go to golden point. There's no saying the Warriors win that in golden point anyway, particularly with how the last couple of weeks has gone for them in sort of golden point. But, those two tries you mentioned in the first 10 minutes, those are the moments for me that lose you a game, not the kick on the 80th minute.
There's so much that goes into it, and I think any loss, if you put it down to one moment, if you want to beat a team, you've got to beat them convincingly. If it comes down to one moment, a referee's decision or a kick missing or something like that, you haven't done enough to win.
Correct. I agree. So there you go. The Warriors looking to bounce back from the loss to Canberra as they face the West Tigers on Friday night at Go Media Stadium, Mount Smart. They're back at Mount Smart. Feels like we haven't had many games at Mount Smart over the last month or so, but we are back there on Friday night. And we're going to have live commentary here on SENZ as well as a big build-up, Jello, which yourself might be a part of with
the big build-up. Is it like a 2-hour show before?
Big 2-hour show with Aish. We've got a sideline as well with Pip Morris, so she'll be there too. It's going to be an awesome occasion. And coming up very, very shortly, Pat Richards, a Tigers legend himself, is going to jump on with us. We'll talk about how the Tigers are tracking this year and over the last couple of years since Pat retired, and have a look towards Friday night as well. Running it straight here on SNZ. You keep your texts coming in on 8833. Back in a mo. Welcome back into Running It Straight here on SENZ. We are talking rugby league, the great game, up until 3 p.m. And we've got a very special guest joining us on the line, Jello.
He is, mate, a very dear friend of mine. He is one of the most respected and revered men in rugby league. He was a grand final winner 2005. He's a Super League winner. He's a Challenge Cup winner. He's a Super League Man of Steel winner. One of the Fox League's most talented players to never play Origin. We're going to talk about that in a second. Aside from that, he's a schoolboy cricketer for Australia. One of the most unbelievable kick games you have ever seen. And aside from that, just one of the all-round most naturally gifted athletes. Kick tennis, table tennis, I can attest to this, playing with this man for a few years. Golf, I'm scared to ask your handicap. We're going to talk about that in a second too. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Pat Richards.
Oh, heck of an intro, Jello.
Wow, I could listen to that all day, mate. I'll bring you around to it.
Well, I'll tell you what, mate, the list goes on because I've been scouring the internet for a boxing fight that you had recently, and I can't find the footage. Can you please... tell us how you win. Who did you fight? How did you go, mate?
Yeah, so that was an unbelievable experience, actually. It was for the executive fighter here in Sydney, raising money for charity. And I was up against Kyle Stanley, who used to play for the Dragons. He's a lot younger than I was, and he's in real good condition. And his career was actually cut short because he had about 5 knee reconstructions. So the training process was unbelievable, and I ended up having the fight, and I ended up getting the win at the end, and it was a good scrap. He threw a couple straight down the middle, and clocked me a few times, but it was a heap of fun.
Oh, wicked, man.
1-0.
1-0, undefeated, and still
professional.
1-0, hang up the gloves.
That's the way to do it. Now, there was a couple of things that Jello did mention in there, Pat, that he sort of glanced over nonchalantly. We've definitely got to circle back to the ping pong. What were you saying there, Jello? And you've said you've experienced it yourself. Ping pong champion off the field.
Yeah. So we, like, in between video meetings and training and stuff like that, there's all these little ways that we fill time.
Mm-hmm.
Table tennis was one of them. Paddy, do you remember the kick tennis games? How heated they would get?
Oh, mate, when they're crazy. I loved that's the part of footy that I think you miss is those little moments in between training and just mucking around with the boys, and you can't really replicate that in any other part of your life. Just having fun, like, because you're a kid and you're actually doing that all the way through your career. So it was unreal, and that was good times out over there at Wigan, wasn't it?
Oh, I never thought about that, actually, because it is a lot like school. You know, at school you have your lunchtime and you all go outside and you play football and whatever. And then even when you're playing first grade footy, you're just playing darts, you're playing cards, you're always playing something at lunchtime. I don't think there's any other place, you couldn't go work at a bank and be like, all right, guys, 5-a-side soccer at lunchtime, So
maybe you could, to be honest.
I guess you could.
I think that's what that's one thing that a lot of players miss from the game is not just the footy on the weekend. It's just those little times you're spending on bus trips away or just mucking around. They're the things you miss. So it's good fun.
There's one thing you didn't mention in that intro, Joe. I'm not sure if it was intentional or not, but of course one of the great grand final tries as well that Pat Richards was involved in. And I bet you get asked about that all the time.
Well,
Pat.
It goes without saying. That's why I mentioned it.
No, it's probably one of those. And in fact, when grand finals roll around, Pat, does your phone just sort of get an extra dose of messages from people wanting to get you on?
Yeah, it's funny because even the kids are onto it now. They're sort of like, "Oh, Dad, there's your try again." And I'm lucky enough that I'm in a pretty good moment, a special moment that's been remembered, and I feel like it's getting better and better with age too. Because it wouldn't have been as good if it didn't have a young Benji Marshall involved and just creating that bit of magic on that stage. I was lucky to be the right man at the right time and just to finish off that bit of magic. But yeah, to be involved in a special play like that, and we ended up going on to win the game is even more special.
I hope you're getting royalties from the from every time it gets replayed on Fox League and that sort of thing.
Hey, Paddy, you mentioned the kids there. How's young Aiden? How old is he now?
He just turned 17 and he's just gone back to rugby league actually. Yeah, so he started playing rugby league when he was 12, and he's having his first year back and he's really enjoying it. He went to play AFL and basketball, so he's picking up a few different skills from other things, but he's loving his league now, and he's playing for Camden Rams and he's doing really well.
Well, he sounds like a chip off the old block, hey? Good at everything. Holy hecker.
Let's talk about the Tigers, Pat, and obviously that's the topic du jour for us this week, given that we've got the Tigers in town to take on the Warriors on Friday night. Where do you sort of sit with where the club's at the moment, Pat? There's so much, unrest over the last couple of years. There's been so much change, and particularly the results haven't come for the club. How do you, I guess, from the outside looking in, as a proud former West Tiger, you had 2 stints with them. Of course, you won a grand final with them in 2005. How do you sort of view it all sitting on the outside looking in?
Yeah, I think we're showing really good glimpses this year of this type of footy Benji wants us to play. I think at the start of the year we were doing really well with our defence, and now lately we're doing really good with our attack. So it's like we've got to just blend them in together and then we'll have a decent footy side. But the good thing is we're flooding a lot of really good young kids at the moment. I know the results aren't quite there, but they're showing those glimpses, like I said, of great footy, and we'll definitely be improving over the next couple of years. Like you got the likes of Lockie Galvin, who's been 18 years of age, and he's been unbelievable for what type of footy that he's playing. Normally when you see a good young 18-year-old coming through, they're physically developed and they're able like that. Well, Lockie hasn't really developed physically. He's just a natural footballer and he just bounces around everywhere. So he'll be better in the next year or two when Jerome Luai comes to the club as well. And we've got Appy at 9, and we've got Jerome Fuller at 1. That's a decent spine there. So, things are definitely looking up.
Yeah, for sure, man. I've actually noticed that as well. Every time the Tigers seem to, they do go down lately, they're still scoring, over 20 points a game, which is something you don't often see. As far as building, you talk about, young guys coming in and this being a rebuilding stage for the Tigers. Do you think all the pieces are there yet? Is it rebuilding yet, or is it still searching for those pieces?
Probably need a couple of other, bring these good young kids through and a couple other senior guys in as well. But I think it's been amazing in a side that's trying hard. But it's hard if it's if you look at the Super League, you've got sides over there at the bottom of the table. Not that good a side. But we're actually a pretty good side over here. The NRL is such a tough competition with all the teams. So, the Bulldogs showed where they're at. They had a couple of quality players to their side. Now they're in the top 8. So you can turn it around quickly. Hopefully, always just believe in each other and enjoy and look at the good things they're doing on the field and just fix up a few other areas in the game.
Pat, just casting your mind back to 05 and the Tigers team that won the premiership, when you think back to that year, what was it about the club in that year that brought the best out of all of you guys and I guess allowed you to win a grand final? And I'm not necessarily talking about strategy and the players that you had, but the Tigers' identity, which I think a lot of people have been searching for since those years. What was it in 05 that you guys had that the Tigers need to recapture if they want to sort of get back to a similar position?
Well, I've seen a try that we scored just before half-time last week. Boys were just playing great sweet, really, and that's what we did. We were sort of inconsistent as well in 04 and 05, start of 05, but then we went on a run. We had a lot of self-belief, and we backed ourselves to play that style of footy. So I think you've got to find your own style of footy and nail that, and just believe in each other, really. So, back in 05, that side we had, we sort of all come together and just worked extremely hard. Lucky with injuries, and we had those young kids coming through at the right time, and it just been a incredible ride. So, the boys are a fair way off at the moment, but they're knuckle down. Like I said, we keep building and growing each year, and eventually be playing consistent footy.
Was there, flashback to 05 and, you went away for some time and came back to the Tigers. The time that you spent with Benji, was there anything, any attributes that you could see in him then as a player that you kind of see now as a coach, where you think, that guy, one day he's going to make an awesome coach, or is a coaching role something he's more kind of grown into since taking it on?
I think there's two parts of Benji's career. That first part, he didn't really think about anything really, just instinct, natural ability, and it was amazing to be around. And he sort of grew into that really good game manager and great mind of rugby league. So he put all of that together. So the start of his career and the end of his career was totally different. And he's a super smart guy. He's doing really good things at the club. The results aren't there now, but if someone would have said when I first saw that young kid coming through that he'd be an NRL coach, I probably wouldn't have believed it at the time because he would be throwing 30-metre cutout balls, and a lot of the time they didn't hit the mark, but he sort of had that attitude and that self-belief that he didn't care. He backed himself to do it again, and a lot of the time it come off.
Yeah, and I agree with you as well, Pat, that getting that confidence into the youngsters to just play some free football. And like you mentioned, when they've been doing that this year, it's often when they've been playing their best. So I guess it's doing that more consistently. They've got a task against the Warriors side on Friday night, a Warriors team that's hurting a little bit as well after an impressive 2023, mate. What have you, I guess, made of the Warriors' resurgence, and what are you expecting come Friday night?
Yeah, they've probably been a little bit inconsistent this year compared to what they were last year. And the Wars, they were amazing. The ride that went on, and they brought the fans along over in New Zealand and also over here in Australia. Even my kids were talking about it at school, and it was an incredible ride. So I think consistency's let them down a little bit this year, but they definitely still have the squad to go on a bit of a run. Hopefully not against the Tigers this week, though.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hey, something popped up on my Facebook feed the other day, Paddy, and it's another piece of Pat Richards' history, and one that I was actually honoured to be a footnote of, because in this play, it was a fifth tackle play. You were on the wing. I was playing centre. I threw an offload back to you. It was 45 metres out from the sideline, and you caught it and hit a field goal. Something I haven't seen since, and I don't think I'll see again.
Do you get a field goal assist for that, Joe?
I do. A field goal assist that goes in the column. What was the?
It's all about the assist.
Yeah, it was all the distribution.
Mate, talk us through the moment. What was going through your head at that moment?
Well, it was amazing. It was unbelievable, really. It was sort of like it's something that happened so quick, and before I'd even thought about it, the ball was going through the posts. I know we ran the ball on the last, but you remember that rule we had over in the Super League where if there was a knock on and the other side got the ball, they basically had a free play where they could try anything, and if it didn't work, they could go back and have a scrum and they get the ball back. So I always thought to myself, if there was a knock on or something like that on the last, I was in the half of footy, I would have a crack at a field goal. Where this wasn't the case, we actually ran the ball on the last, and maybe that was already in the back of my mind, but as soon as I grabbed the ball, I just had a crack, and it's like Nathan Cleary when you hit that one on the weekend. When you hit them sweet, you know they're going over.
Yeah.
I hit it pretty well.
And often those sort of instinctive drop goals are the ones that are the best, the ones that aren't sort of deeply planned and you're sort of sitting in the back.
I didn't even know it was a drop goal. I thought he had just punted it downfield. And so I was going,
You're on the chase,
I was setting up for the 20-metre kick going, mate, that's a bit hard. Like, you could have pulled it back a little bit. And then everyone's running back to halfway, doing pats on the back. I was like, wow. Good on you,
that's fantastic.
It would have been remembered a bit more if we went well on to win the game. So unfortunately, they ended up coming back and beating us.
Hey, Pat, it's been awesome to have you on, mate. A former sort of Tigers legend. I know there's a lot of West Tigers fans here in New Zealand as well. Whenever they come to town, it's a sellout and a big contingent of Tigers fans in the crowd who will remember you fondly and love hearing you with us today here on SENZ, mate. So really appreciate your time. Go well and enjoy Friday night.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, welcome back into Running It Straight as we talk rugby league up until 3 p.m. And we have the Warriors against the West Tigers, 8 p.m. Friday night kickoff at Go Media Stadium, Mount Smart. We will have live commentary here on SENZ with build-up from 6 p.m. A nice big elongated build-up for you as we go through until around about 10 o'clock. Let's have a look at the team lists that were named yesterday by Andrew Webster and Benji Marshall. For the Warriors, it is Tui Vasashek in the number 1 jersey. A lot of people will be very happy about that. Watene Zelezniak and Ed Kossi are the 2 wings. Ali Leatoa and Mawala Graham Tofa in the centres. Chanel Harris-Tavita, Tamari Martin in the halves. And you got Whanua Blake Barnett, the props. Wade Egan, the number 9. Maratini Akorde and Kurt Capewell in the second row with Dylan Walker, the 13. That leaves Freddie Lussick Jackson for Jazz Tavanga and Leka Halasima on the interchange. Jello, no Adam Pompey back, no Taintu Opiki. So a couple of forced moves or changes for Andrew Webster. What do you make of the 17?
It's a very young back five. Also noticeable absence of Rocco Berry still out with that shoulder injury. So it's a very young back five. I think that is our best team though that you could pick from what's available. 1 to 17. You just have to trust that these guys still believe that they are a chance of making the 8, because that makes a big difference.
The forward pack still, that's pretty much a full-strength forward pack, so relatively strong. The Tigers 17, Doreen Buller in the number 1, Luke Lalili and Charlie Staines, the 2 wingers, Solomona Fa'atape and Stafford Toa in the centres, Lockie Galvin and Latu Fainu in the halves, no Aiden Caesar, Stefano Utukamanu and Whanua Paul in the front row, Api Korosau, of course the captain in the number 9, and you got Ruben Porter, Samuela Fainu in the second row with Isaiah Papali'i, the former Warrior, in the number 13. Talon Silva, bit of a rock star backup hooker on the interchange with Alex Seyfarth, Sione Fainu and Alex Twal. That is the 17 for Benji and the Tigers. A couple of omissions. John Bateman omitted as well. We're hearing that he has been released to go back to the Super League for the remainder of the season. But what do you make of that team from Benji?
They're gettable, very gettable. Last year, start of last season, they came with almost a lot of these names very familiar that played in that trial game. For a lot of them, that was their first game or first taste of kind of first grade footy. Since then, a couple of them have got a few games under their belt now, but still very gettable. You expect the Warriors to beat these guys, especially up the middle. Looking at those two forward packs side by side, the Warriors got a got to take that one for sure.
Well, heck of a lot more experience as well. So where's the game won and lost, Jello? What have the Tigers been doing when they do it well? What have they been doing well and right that the Warriors need to be wary of? Where do you think that game is going to be won and lost?
They seem to be going good, kind of from 50 out. When they get their little shift plays on, when they keep hold of the ball, they're not scared to throw it around when they do shift it. The Warriors just got to be on. They got to keep an eye on Jareen Buller. He's a very good support player. He pops up on every little half break and stuff like that. So I think Warriors, if they just hold the ball and grind them out, they'll get a win, because this Tigers team can play if there's a sniff. If they got a chance, they'll show up. If you can, bury them early, they change what they're doing, and they can go missing at times. So,
all right, what's your prediction?
Warriors 13 plus.
High scoring, is there going to be lots of points or?
I just don't know, Sammy. I just don't know. It's the NRL, mate. I just don't know. You don't know what this Tigers team's going to show up with. Because here's the thing. Teams in the bottom 8, teams in the bottom 4, they always win their last game or their second to last game.
Yeah.
Or, they'll go on a little run at the back end of the season. We're not in that territory yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's still round 21. Because you always see it, don't you? The team that finishes last will win their last game and be like, oh, why don't we just play like this all year? You always see it.
So, and the other thing as well is it's not like this is a full-strength Warriors team. Plenty of guys still out, plenty of positional changes, so it's hard to know what you're going to expect, particularly from that back five, right, with sort of a new centre pairing. Ed Cossey coming back into the side, Roger at the back. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. If it works, it's going to be fantastic and they'll score 40 points. But, there's a part of me as well. It's like, it might be clunky. The attack might take a while to sort of gel. TBC, but Warriors 13 plus. I think I'll stick with that as well. Jello, let's have a quick look at some of the other games on this weekend. Eels Storm following the Warriors, and you'd think that the Storm keep that going, although the Eels have been a bit of a bogey team for the Storm and the Panthers over the last couple of years. It is at home for the Eels, but no Mitch Mosese for the rest of the season.
Yeah,
so
I think that's the difference. If there was going to be an upset, you'd have to have Mitch Moses there to pull some kind of strings, but the Storm they aren't dropping these kind of games. The games when they're expected to win, they show up and they deliver, and that's why they're top of the table. Yeah,
I agree. That's absolutely not faltering. Saturday, 5 p.m, Broncos Bulldogs at Suncorp. This is going to be a cracker because two teams, the Bulldogs inside the top 8, Bulldogs vying for top 8, Broncos vying for the top 8, and have all the Origin stars back and Adam Reynolds back as well. And we saw what that meant for them last weekend with a big win. What do you reckon, Broncos Bulldogs?
Broncos, they're a different team with Rendiggity there, and you could see it. You could see it in the way that they shift the ball. So Reece Walsh had so much time and space on that right edge, albeit they played a Newcastle Knights team where Bradman Best was missing from that left edge, so it was a little bit makeshift in defence. But Reece Walsh, that's what he looked like last year. He had that time and space. He comes around the corner on the back of that block. He's got 20 metres, and his winger and centre know that. They give him space as well, and he's got so much room to move. It's like in basketball, you get the ball called the isolation, and he just smokes guys one-on-one. So if that's the way they're going to play, I think the Bulldogs are going to struggle. Someone made a really good point this week where they said it's the weather conditions that have kept the Bulldogs
games close
because they are very much a grinding team. So get them in the wet, low scoring, they'll win those games.
And I've told you, I feel like the Bulldogs haven't beaten those teams like above them. They've not beaten the premiership favourites, and I think the Broncos are sort of, whilst they're not premiership favourites right now, they certainly were at the beginning of the season, and with all their stars back, they're a different team. So they have to win this, the Bulldogs, if they want to sort of stamp a claim on doing well in the finals. Cowboys Sharks 7:30 on Saturday. It's quite a good game as well. Of course, I mentioned it earlier on the show. No Nico Hines for the Sharks for the rest of this, the rest of the regular season, and the Cowboys are a team that some have predicted to go on a bit of a run at this back end of the season. They are inside the top 8 as things stand. Narrow loss to the Bulldogs last week, but what do you reckon?
Well, these guys always seem to have a close game. I think they've gone to Golden Point already this year. I think they went Golden Point last year in the finals, was it?
The Sharks or the Cowboys? The Cowboys Sharks, they did, I think.
Was that the year before? I'm getting confused.
Might have been the year before when the Cowboys
it always
were in the
seems,
top 4.
every time I'm watching these two teams play, it always seems to be 1 point at it or Golden Point. So this could go either way. I'm picking a draw, Golden Point
draw.
Whoever. I'd say the Sharks would hit the 1 point.
Roosters Seagulls 9:35 on Saturday. That is a good game as well, as Roosters try and bounce back into winning ways. The Seagulls with their full complement of players pretty much. Tommy Turbo starting to get it done once again. What do you reckon? At home for the Roosters.
I'd pick the Roosters for this one. I think they're the better side overall, better squad. But with the Turbo factor, he's well rested now. the Seagulls with that game last week, bashing the Titans, they look like the Seagulls that started the year. So although they've gone missing, they've kind of lost their way a bit. It looks like they've kind of found that form once again, but that's a big test with the Roosters. I'm going to take the Roosters 1-12 in a close one.
Dragons, Panthers, Dolphins, Titans. Are you predicting an upset in either of those two games?
No.
So those wins for them. And then Raiders, Rabbitohs, the last game on Sunday at 8:15, which has big ramifications for top 8 hopes.
Yeah, it's going to be a big game. I think Canberra with Fogarty back are a different team. And
They are,
although they looked rusty last week against the Warriors, I think Fogarty was responsible for 2 or 3 of those Warriors tries coming through. I think he's going to find his feet this week, and they're going to play some good footy.
So you reckon the Raiders get it done?
I'll pick the Raiders.
That'll push them into the top 8, which will make it very interesting towards the back end of the season. Right, there you go. That's our round 21 preview as we inch towards the last part of the season. We'll take our final break here on Running It Straight. When we come back, we've got some players to add to our Simpsons 13. Welcome back into Running It Straight as we round out the show and hand over to the run home at 3 p.m. We've got some more players to add to our Simpsons 13. We don't have time to run through all the players we've selected so far, but we are going to make 2 more selections today just to speed things up, and then I think we've got 3 positions left. So, Jello, you can go first today, and you can pick your next 2 for your Simpsons 13.
Right, so I'm colouring in my backline here. So I've got Ned Flanders and Sideshow Bob. That's my right side combination, centre winger.
Yes.
I'm going left side centre winger, and I'm going to the police force. Lou and Eddie.
Okay.
So not
proven
Chief,
combination.
Not Chief Wiggum. Clancy Wiggum. Not him.
That's not
okay.
me.
Too much calamity with him. Too much drama. It's these guys that pull him in track.
Yep.
Okay. So these guys are kind of setting the culture.
Yeah.
So Lou and Eddie. I might have Eddie on the wing, Lou at centre.
I like that. Yeah, they do work well together. I'm going for something similar here, Jello. I'm actually going to take one of the sets of twins in The Simpsons, and that is Selma and Patty Bouvier. I think it's Bouvier.
The Big Boppers.
The Big Boppers. And I'm going to put them on my right edge. So I'm going to put Selma in the centre, Patty on the wing. No rhyme or reason to that because they're identical. But my thought here is obviously very, very well accustomed to each other. Basically think exactly the same. And a little bit of extra flavour. Is there something about wingers? Do they generally get on the darts as well? Because Selma and Patty love the darts.
I'm thinking Morris Brothers.
The other thing as well is with Selma and Patty Bouvier, I'm predicting that's French. So maybe French internationals. No risk of state of origin. So I'm not going to lose them during the origin period.
Smart,
Jello.
bro, smart.
So Selma and Patty are my centre and my winger. And that is Running It Straight for another week. Great to have your company. We will be back next Wednesday, of course, at the same time, 2 p.m, hopefully to talk through a big Warriors win over the West Tigers. We have live coverage of that here on SENZ on Friday night, build up from 6 with kickoff at 8, but it is the run home up next.
SENZ, it's Kiwi for sport.